In this video we're going to talk through the features of the software, explain what the settings do and how it works. This piece of software is very straightforward. You select a folder that contains PLR content, and this is just straight text content that you've downloaded from wherever you get your PLR content from. And then you give it an output folder, which is where you want it to put the spun variations of your PLR content. Pretty much once you've selected those, it's just a matter of choosing your settings and hitting the spin button, and the software does the rest. So let's just talk through what these settings are. The software has two ways of spinning the content, and you can use just one or both of these methods. The first one is a synonyms list, and what this is a large substitutions list of words, and it will go through the articles and look for words in the list and substitute them for its synonym variation. Now, the synonyms list in the software has been fairly carefully selected so that we don't get instances where words are taken that can have several different contexts. So the synonyms list in here isn't as large as the database of synonyms that you might get in a thesaurus, for example, but it has been carefully narrowed down. So to give you an example, if you were to put the word dog into a standard synonym checker, you would get back words that mean the same as the animal type dog, so dog, canine, hound, that kind of thing. You would also get back words that mean to dog somebody, to pester someone, to vex them, to badger them, that sort of thing. Obviously, in a piece of software that is just substituting words out and trying to come up with content that's going to make some sense, it doesn't have the artificial intelligence behind it to work out the context of what is written. So rather than try and do something ridiculous like that, the better route was to take the synonyms list and narrow it down. Now, it's still a massive list, but it's a list which means we shouldn't get too many instances where the words it substitutes don't really make sense. The synonyms list, we'd never ever want to use 100% of it, because if you were to use all of it, it would and substitute every possible word you could substitute, you would end up with articles that didn't make a lot of sense. So we limit how much you can do. You can do up to 40% of the master list. I recommend you go somewhere between 5 and 20%. Now, the exact setting that works best for you will depend on the kind of articles you're spinning, so you may need to do some experimenting with this first. If you're doing articles that have a lot of very common words in, then you can get away with spinning less of them. If you've got very specialist articles that are going to have some specialist phrases and terms that aren't going to be spun, then it's going to find less things that it can spin successfully, so you may want to give it more of the list. The general rule of thumb is that the higher you set this, the more unique your content will be, but at the same time, the higher you set this, the less the content will end up making sense at the end. So you'll get more unique content that doesn't necessarily read right. And the lower you set it, it will seem more like English, it will read better, but it will be less unique. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to pop it on around 10%. The second method is also a fairly well-known method of doing spinning. It is a translation method, whereby it takes sections of your content and runs them through a foreign language translator and translates them into a different language and then back to English. And someone some time ago discovered that if you did that, you ended up with content that could still make sense, but had changed enough. Now, the downfall of many language-based systems for spinning is that they are indiscriminate in the languages they select. With this software, we have chosen which languages work best for spinning English content, and we found it's mainly the European languages, but again not all of them. So we've carefully chosen them, so this means that you're not really going to end up with these cases. For example, if you were to translate something into Afrikaans and back to English, you're going to have a hard time understanding it when it comes back. Whereas if you do it using French, German, that sort of thing, then you're going to get back a reasonable content. It goes through paragraph by paragraph. Well, it actually puts the paragraphs into blocks, but I won't go too much into exactly how it works. And then it randomly selects a language from the list of ones that work, translates it into that, and then translates it back to English. And then it will repeat it if you set this more than one level deep. So for example, if we set it 2 levels deep, then each piece of text will be turned into one language, then back to English, and then turned into another language, and then back to English. You can do up to 4 levels deep. To be honest with you, 4 levels generally produces a little bit gibberish, so I rarely go above 1 or 2 anyway. Again, experiment with the type of articles that you are spinning and see what works best for you. For this demonstration, we'll leave it on 1. Again, the rule of thumb is the higher you set this, the more unique your content, but the less sense it's going to make. And also the other thing to remember with both of these things, the higher you set these, the longer the program will take to do the spinning. It's just purely down to how long it takes to process it and everything else. So in this case, we'll go with 10%, 1 level deep. I'm going to hit the spin button, and when I do, it will start taking our content. You get a status down the bottom. Now this is using 10% of the synonyms list, and it's randomly selected 10% from the master list, or around 10%, which in this case is about 1700, almost 1800 words. And that's going to sit and run through, and then it's going to run it through the translator, which it's doing now, and this does it in sections, and then move on to the next article. I'm going to pause this video while that finishes, and then we'll take a look at the content that's come out. Okay, it hasn't actually finished, but it's been going up only about a minute now, and it's on the 4th article. This isn't meant to be the fastest spinning method in the world. The general idea is that you would set this up, click the button, go off and have a coffee. Or you can actually set it going and minimize it. It's not too heavy on system resources. So if you've got a reasonable computer, you should get away with running this minimized and be able to carry on with all your other work. If I'm doing a lot of articles, say I've got a folder with a few thousand in it, I will set it up running and leave the computer running overnight doing it. Let's just kind of take a look. I can open the output folder. It's just starting to do the 5th article now. So if I bring up the folder, we can see the articles that it's done so far. There's the 4 it's done already. And if we just open one of these up, hopefully we should see that this still makes quite a lot of sense. And there we go. That is the automatic spinner. Very straightforward, very easy to use. Thank you for watching.